Our featured speaker today won my admiration years ago, Dr. Stephen Rader. Dr. Rader is a professor emeritus of applied linguistics at Portland State University, Portland, Oregon. His research, publication, and advocacy focuses on adults' lifelong and life-wide literacy, numeracy, digital literacy, and second language development. For our part, Dr. Rader's academic research informs many of Washtenaw Literacy's programs and strategy with data-driven evidence. We are honored by Dr. Rader's support for our shared mission, and I am pleased to welcome him as this year's speaker. Steve, you can have the screen.
Well, thank you, Amy, and Washtenaw Literacy, and all of you for the kind welcome and for the opportunity to take part in your inspiring event today. It's really my pleasure to be part of the celebration of the outstanding work of Washtenaw Literacy and the accomplishments of all the learners you serve. I was particularly moved by Willie's story, which sounded somehow familiar to me. I had the great fortune of being able to conduct a longitudinal study of adult learning with the help of many dedicated staff and graduate students, and we followed nearly 1,000 adults over nearly a 10-year period, conducting repeated interviews and assessments in their homes every year or every 2 years. I call that the LSAL study. And the LSAL adults followed were randomly sampled from the target population for adult education in the Portland area. They were all high school dropouts at the start of the study. Some went through basic skills programs like Washtenaw Literacy. Others didn't. That was really up to them. But we were able to compare their life experiences, their struggles, and their accomplishments in ways that showed clear patterns of program participation and program impact. But the most important point here is that each adult is an individual with their own story. Lots of stories involve struggling with different aspects of life and learning. Like Washtenaw Literacy, I believe that our world is made up of both stories and numbers, not just statistics. And it's the stories and the changing stories that really count. Let me show you quickly some of the things I learned from following these learners and their stories and putting them together in different ways. I'm going to go quickly through some of this material, but don't worry about the details. It's the bigger message that is most important here. Let's start my first slide, please. Like Willie, many individuals we followed had multiple periods in their life when they were participating in a program. 40% of the learners we followed never participated. But of those who did participate, the majority had more than just one period of participation over this decade that we followed them. Next slide, please. Mixed in between these periods of program participation are periods of self-study, as we called it, where adults are working on their own to try and improve their skills or prepare for GED or other things they needed in their lives. The largest group you can see in this pie chart did both participate in a program and do self-study. So that's very significant. And this was a long time ago, probably 20 years ago when we started this study. And technology wasn't nearly what it is today. And I think self-study is probably even more widespread today. Next slide, please. So one of the things we asked people about from one interview to the next, and these were spaced, as I said, a year or two apart, were how often they were doing things like reading books, newspapers, emails, and so forth. In the blue bars you see going across this slide, that's the percentage of the adults who showed increases in their everyday reading activities over time, from one wave to the next. The bar on the left is the group that neither went to programs nor self-studied. And then you see the various combinations all the way over to the rightmost cluster where the blue bar shows you the very large percentage of adults who did both programs and self-study. They really increased what I call engagement in literacy practices. Now, why should we care about this? Let's have the next slide. I have developed over the years something I like to call practice engagement theory, which really highlights the importance of engagement in everyday reading and writing practices, like the ones we were following in our study. And analyzing the data, the relationship between test scores, and we gave very standardized assessments every time we went to someone's home, is that engagement in reading and writing practices in everyday life has a huge effect on the development of their literacy skill, as well as improvement in the very important social and economic outcomes we've been talking about today. And this theory provides a framework for understanding how everyday literacy practices, instructional programs like yours, and literacy skills mutually influence each other. So let's take a look quickly first at literacy skill growth over time. Next slide, please. So this shows over time, these are the 6 waves of the LSAL study, comprising about a 10-year period. 2 groups of our adults that we followed, one who went through programs, one who did not. The ones who did not go through programs are in the dotted line you see at the top there, and their tested literacy scores were pretty stable over time on average. But the ones who went through programs, as you can see, started off somewhat lower down on the skill scale, but caught up with the others. And that's very, very important. You can't quite see it here, but when we break the data down by how long it was after people left the program that we measured their literacy skill, we found that this boost you get from going through a program takes often years to fully develop. You don't see it just like the day somebody magically walks out of your program. What they learn in your program actually continues to drive their literacy development in their life. Programs, we found, have short-term impacts on engagement in literacy practices, reading and writing every day. And those increasing engagements are things that drive increasing skill development. But that's not all they drive. And I want to show you another example on the next slide. This is changes in income, and we were measuring this because our study participants gave us permission to anonymously match up with their unemployment insurance records. So we have very, very detailed income measures and changes in individuals' income measures over time. And look what you have here. I'm not sure how clearly it's coming through in this slide as I'm seeing it, but there's a line that goes up just barely over time, and that is the line for participants, for non-participants in programs, the ones who didn't go through. They went up a little bit over time, and that is because people's incomes tend to go up over time as they get more work experience. But look at the group of people who did go through programs. That's the line that's really going up over time. They started lower, but they not only caught up, they surpassed. You're seeing $1997 on this scale, but when we reconverted it to 2013 dollars, it was a difference of almost $10,000 a year of income that we estimated was a result of going through programs like Washtenaw Literacy. The interesting thing is, like literacy proficiency that we were just talking about, this income premium doesn't just magically appear when people walk out the door of the program. it takes years to fully develop. So again, things that people develop while they're in the programs continue to influence their life in positive ways long after they leave. We have a lot of statistical controls to try to equate the groups of participants and non-participants, but I'm not going to go into those details today. I'm happy to share them or answer questions later about that. Now I want to say, well, how do we put all of this stuff together? Can we have the next slide? I like to talk about two different ways of thinking about how these findings fit together. One is a program-centric parking lot metaphor, and the other is a learner-centric busy intersection metaphor. The parking lot metaphor may be more familiar to you when you think about large classroom programs, but I think it's also a metaphor sometimes that financial exigencies impose on community-based programs like Washtenaw Literacy as well. Let's have the next slide and quickly think about these two ways. This is the parking lot model. What's really important is that you have slots for learners and you keep them in the program, the parking lot, for as long as you can. And there are often good reasons for wanting to do that. Maybe your funding is related to that, and so on. But that starts to break down the individuality of people's lives, like Willie's story that he shared earlier. Let's look at the next slide, which is the busy intersection. So here you think about a program not as a parking lot, but as a busy intersection in which people come in on different pathways, spend varying amounts of time in the program. Maybe they go in and out, as we were seeing earlier, because of life circumstances. But what may be really important isn't just the path they took coming into the program, but what they got while they were in the program that are resources to help them on their journeys along different pathways out of the program into the rest of their lives. Next slide, please. So let me just quickly go through some of the differences between these two different ways of thinking about programs and the learners who come through them. In the parking lot metaphor, our goal is to recruit students, fill the seats and retain the students. We think of providing services to students. And generally, the longer students stay in the program, the more they learn and the better off they are. And the pathways are often thought of as being within the program itself. And often what is used to measure and make programs accountable in this way of thinking are short-term literacy skill gains. In the busy intersection model, on the other hand, we think about adults coming to programs along different life pathways, and programs are actually resources for active learners rather than dispensers of services. How long students stay may not matter as much as the directions and tools they take with them when they leave the program. And as we've seen, increased engagement in literacy practices as opposed to test scores is emphasized in this way of thinking about programs. Okay, why do I mention this? Well, I think Washtenaw Literacy is really operating as a busy intersection program. Let's look at the next slide and see what some of the implications of this might be. Programs should really think about different ways, and it sounds like the pandemic has really brought this home to Washtenaw Literacy, different ways of connecting tutoring, self-study, and classes where they're available that are all too often fragmented, as we heard in Willie's story, and as I saw in so many other stories. they're fragmented by life circumstances, and we need to find ways of integrating them together, maybe expanding the way we even think about our programs. We need to support lifelong and life-wide learning outside of the program, not just learning inside the program. We need to prioritize engaging students in sustainable literacy practices, ones that are customized the way Amy was talking about to fit their personal needs, and build in skill development within those everyday reading and writing practices and digital literacy practices. And most importantly, to really appreciate the impact that our programs are having on learners' lives, we need to follow them, their life trajectories, and their outcomes well after they leave the program. I'm very excited hearing about all of Washtenaw Literacy's activities that already embody these principles. The LOSAC initiative that Amy talked about in particular is following your learners over long periods of time to see the variety of their longer term outcomes and needs for better literacy. I think, though I understand LOSAC's been slowed down, of course, by the pandemic, I'm convinced it could become a national model for other programs to follow. So I want to thank you all again for your opportunity to share this occasion with you, and particularly thank you for all you do and all the ways you support Washtenaw Literacy.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate your help with this, with everything we do every day. Really comes back to your lifelong work in this regard, and it is just such a joy to welcome you to Washtenaw County.